I don't know if you're trying to speak right now. Not getting anything from you.
Can you
Oh,
hear me now?
hey, there we go. What's up, man?
What's up? What's up?
Dude, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you guys doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Can't complain. Can't complain. Another day living. No-
Hey, there you go. I'm doing it from my phone, so if you ask me to show you guys anything, I can't really do it.
Hey, no worries, no worries. It's all good. No, I just wanted to kind of like ask you a few questions. Maybe there might be some questions from the chat as well. Just kind of again, you shared with us the other day that you had, you had grossed over $100,000 in this month. And I mean, my first question to you is how does that feel, man? How has this experience been for you so far?
Well, the biggest thing is overcoming the losses, right? So I always remember that, there's always going to be good days, there's always going to be bad days, right? So you
Mm,
try to have you always got to remember that the bad days, it will always be better when the good days come, right? So you have to not dwell on those bad days as they come, right? So you have to take it to the face. Like I have bad days just like everybody else, right? Like yesterday I had a bad day, right? Today I had a bad day, right? So I try not to let those take control of me, and then I learn to walk away when the time is right, right?
mm,
So I'm like, I give myself, a couple trades. If it doesn't work out in my favor, I just walk away, right? Last couple of days it's been very choppy, right? I had a winning trade this morning, right? And then, out of nowhere that announcement came out, and it just, it took me into the red, right? When I was up 10,000, right? And then it took me for a $10,000 loss, right?
mm.
So, you kind of have to like, take it to the face and, walk away from it, take a breather and understand what's going on. And then, understand why it's doing what it's doing, and then, pay attention, and then make sure that you have a clear train of thought in everything you're doing.
100%, man. Do you think that, like, do you have a plan when you go into the day? Do you tell yourself like that you have to be in a good like emotional headspace before you trade? And if you're not in a good headspace, do you stay out of the market?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you don't feel good that day, I had a day a couple weeks ago where I woke up and I wasn't feeling good. I definitely had a fever, and then I just walked away that day, right? I was just like, you know what? I don't feel good. I'm just not going to do it, right? So, and then, that was a good patient for you, right? And then sometimes you have to tell yourself, if you had a good week, you don't need to trade that day either, right?
Mm,
So, last week I had a good week. I think I made a little over 27,000 last week, and then Friday I didn't trade.
mm.
You have to tell yourself those days are the good days, right? You just walk away from those days.
100%, dude. That's the mindset of a winner right there. Mindset of a profitable trader. It's exactly right. I think more traders could learn from that. Would be huge. Um, so maybe share a little bit about your kind of your scaling journey. How have you been able to well, maybe first, before we talk about scaling, how maybe talk about just your trading journal a little, or your trading journey a little bit, like where you started, how long it took you to get to this point, what it really took for you to overcome some of your struggles, what got you here?
So when I start off like everybody else, right? It was I guess starting off with trading's trader's luck, right? I made a bunch of money beginning, and then I lost it all, right?
Mm,
So I've been trading since 2012 or 2013, and I lost a bunch of money, right? I had my own business, but I didn't really take it seriously. I think I lost like $150,000 out of my own money, and then I stopped, right? I was just like, you know what? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just gonna stop. And then I got back into it again in like around COVID time, and then I lost a bunch of money again, right? But I really stuck to it, and then I joined your Discord, I believe in 22, I believe, around that time. I was one of your first students in your class, right? I
mm-hmm.
joined with Danny, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I would never do that again, right? But that's a conversation for another day, right? But But what I learned from it was, you have to stick to it. If this is something you want to do, you can't give up, right? That's the reason why they say it's only 1% ever make it, right? So when you understand that this is something for a journey, let me tell you something. It will break you before it makes you, right? It will take everything from you before you make it. So I've learned that, if you're willing to give it all, it can give you everything you want, right? So for my scaling journey, like I just realized that when it started clicking for me. I was like, hey, when I was like 100%, like, if it checked all four of my boxes, I went heavy, right? I didn't hesitate. I didn't, wasn't fearful. Now, if only, three out of my four checks, right, I'll scale back a little bit.
Mm,
Or, if I had a big week last week, generally I'll scale down the next week, right? Or if I had a bad week, I'll scale back, right? So it's kind of like in your journey how you want to do it, right? So if you had a bad week, just scale back, right? If you had
mm-hmm,
a good week, scale back, right? I know that sounds kind of confusing, but you have to kind of like say, hey, if I had two good days, I'm gonna scale back, right? Or if I had two bad days, I'll definitely scale back even more, right? So my contracts kind of like they bounce around a lot, right? But majority time, like with like NQ, right? I usually generally trade with around anywhere between 6 to 12 contracts. And then with ES, I generally trade anywhere between 10 and 20 contracts, right? So 10-point stops, I've learned with, the way NASDAQ's been trading, I would trade with at least 120 tick stop loss, right? Because it's just too volatile, right? And it hits your stop too many times, too often, and then it goes in your direction, right? So, you know, I mentally figured out that, you know what, I'd rather risk more to gain more out of it, right? And
mm-hmm.
being in drawdown, it's always going to make you feel different. But as long as you feel comfortable with your situation, then scale back so that you can understand and say, hey, if you can only comfortable trade with like a prop firm account, right? Well, if you're trading micros, well, a 50K account, right? Trade with 2 3 micros, and then but have a big stop loss, right? So you know that this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's very valuable to remember that when it comes to scaling, there's always a time and a place to scale up, and there's a time and place to scale down. I'm glad that you brought that up, and just kind of seeing how that's helped you, because like yeah, you're right. When all of your boxes are checked, yeah, go like that's the time to size in. That's the time to look to make a lot of gains, from your trade. But yeah, if you still want to be involved and maybe you have a few boxes checked off, that's okay to be involved in the trade, but definitely size lighter because the probability of you losing that trade might be a little bit higher. Guys, before we get to the next question, though, it looks like we are reversing here. We are getting inversion. Looks like we're gonna close below the 2 minutes. It's kind of far away at this point from where price is trading. So the only way I could really get involved at this point right here would be if we retrace back into that 2 minute. Right now we are absolutely selling off aggressively. So we'll see if we get a move back into that 2 minute IFEG or not, because this one is just selling off right now. But anyways, um, yeah, the next question I would ask you is, what do you think was your biggest struggle in your trading journey, and how were you able to overcome it?
I would say that it was FOMO, right? It was always like being in the moment, right? Like, you're like, hey, I'm missing out. Hey, I'm missing out, right? Like, you have to tell yourself that it is always going to be here. With or without you, the market's always going to be here. When you're dead, it's still going to be here. It was here before you, it's going to be here after you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to tell yourself, always going to be here. So you're not going to miss anything, right? You have to learn to detach, walk away, and then have, I'm usually like a 1 or 2 day trade guy and then I'm done, right? So, I still struggle with sometimes, like detaching myself, right? When I get alerts on my phone, just like anybody else, right? You automatically look, right? But I've learned to like, turn those alerts off and just walk away, right? There's no better feeling than, I spend the rest of, I got to the point now where I've retired my wife. She doesn't even have to work anymore,
Hmm.
right? So it's like, you get to those moments in your life, you have to learn to understand that, hey, you're in a good position now. Why do you have to do extra stuff, right? Like providing for your family is like the best thing that anybody can do for themselves.
100%, man. That's so sick to hear that, and I didn't even know that. That's amazing, bro. Be able to retire your wife, that's the goal right there. That's the dream, man. That's so sick. I'm very happy to hear that, dude. But yeah, that's a good point. Like, why do you need to push it? Why do you need more? We always want more, 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 more. But it's funny when when we start to focus on coming back a little bit, settling down, and focus on just what do we need. It's not what do we want. It's what do we need. We
Yeah,
focus on what do we need.
exactly.
We stay grounded. I love that perspective,
Yeah,
man. Um.
absolutely.
Uh. So what I would another question I would ask. So Kate asked in the chat, like, what kind of setups do you look for? If you want to maybe just share a little bit about your strategy, it doesn't have to be too in depth, but maybe just kind of what strategy you trade, maybe like something that you look for.
So it's similar. So I do mix a lot of your strategy with the ICT into my, supply and demand trading style, right? So the one thing that I did want to bring up that I'm glad you brought that up, right, is how I trade is I look for, supply and demand, right? But I'm very like aggressive with it, right? Once it peaks into my, I always break it down from my daily to my 3, my 4, my 3, my 2, my 1, my 4, 90 minute, like all the way down to my 15 minute, right? I always look for confluences, right? Wherever the direction is going, right? I always have a daily plan, right? I look for price to go back into my zones, right? And I don't hesitate, right? I use the book map to make sure the confluences are right, right? And I don't hesitate, right? Generally I don't put limit orders, right? I'm like you, right? I just, I'm a buy market sell person, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wait for those exact numbers, right? And I hit them, right? No hesitation, right? You have to be very mechanical, right? You can't just sit there and be like, oh, yeah. I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I hesitate a little bit. I do miss a trade, right? I say, hey, dang, I missed that trade, right? And when I do those things, I'll just walk away
Mm.
because I understand that, I missed that one. That wasn't for me, and it went my way, right? But I understand that not every day is going to be that day for me. So whatever it comes out to be, so be it, right? So like right now, like as we missed this opportunity, right? Well, if it came back, what's the chance of it coming back and going right back up? It's the probability is still good for it to come back down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a strong break, structural break, right? So, and then we're at the London reversal. So, I'm watching the CBD, so I have a lot of confluence, right? I use a footprint chart, right? Which I was noticing it before we got on the interview, right? That on the ES and the footprint that we had a lot of sellers coming in, right? And it was in consolidation and the buyers were getting weak. So I was obviously looking for a sweep of that news candle, but it never happened, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm a little perfectionist too when it comes to it. I was like, hey, I want the sweep of this high. NQ did it, but the ES didn't do it, right? So was it a good? Was it, if I would have took this trade, I'd have been kind of gambling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I'll look at it and say, hey, you know what? That's a good zone, right? Like right now, I would definitely not short this because right now we're back above now we broke through the supply zone, right? And we're above the demand, right? So because the supply now turned into the demand, right? It would have been an easy 10 point, 15 point down move, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I usually get 10, 15 points out of the day and I'll call it a day, right? That 10 or 15 points a day would put me at break even today. And I've been totally happy with that. I generally like, hey, if I get to break even, I'm done. Like, I don't even need to like go green. I think a lot of perceptions of people is that they always say, hey, I need to make money today. Bro, if you can break even on that day, you did good that day.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, dude. That's so true. Like, especially if like you're deep in the red and you just made a crazy comeback, you took a great trade, you get back to break even instinctively. Everybody just right back into another trade. Like, okay, I'm taking another trade. I have to see green. Their account could be literally like $10 in the red, and they would still try to force a trade just to see some green. And like you make a great
Exactly.
point. Like just walk away, man. Break even is that's a win, especially if you made back a loss. Walk away. Just call it. I love that. That's true.
Yeah, if I get even if I'm like, today I'm down $20,000, right? So I'm like, hey, but when I outweigh what I made, you know what I mean? I was like, you know what? All right, fine. You know what? I'm still up on the month, right? So I still got the rest of the month. I'm not gonna sit here and dwell over, right? Was it the way I wanted it in a Friday? No, right? So, but it is what it is, right? So
Mhm.
I take it to the face and say, hey, it's Monday's another day. I'm gonna enjoy the weekend. You know, I got to the place in my life now. It's like the dream of everybody, right? I own amazing cars, and I'm just not saying it, to everybody just to brag, right? But the journey I have, right, bought me my, my amazing home, my amazing cars. Like this is what everybody dreams about. To hear these influencers talk about all the time. Oh yeah, like I have these nice cars. Yeah, bro, I got these nice cars because I worked hard for it. You know what I
Mm,
mean? You
mm-hmm.
ever hear people always say, "Oh man," he goes, "You got lucky." Bro, you should see the scars on my back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, you can see them.
Yep.
That's your luck. You know what I mean?
100%.
So it's like, I always like, take it to face value that, it's, God's blessing gave me the will to be here today. So I take that, into consideration that it was good.
Amen, brother. Amen. That is at the
I think
forefront.
somebody, I trade live and prop. I trade live account. I am not a fan of prop firms. I do understand that people do use prop firms, and that's okay. I tried prop firms before, and it's just not for me, right? It's just my style of trading is very aggressive, and the consistency rule for me is, it doesn't meet my criteria, right? So for me, it's just like, hey, it doesn't work, right? But for some people it does work. It's teaches structure, right?
Mm,
Because I switch in and out of contracts so much, right? And I did that before, and I think I got to a payout, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, your consistency wasn't good." Like what? I was going from like, you know, 15 contracts, 25 contracts. They're like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Oh, that's my style of trading."
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that dude,
but
that's true. Like, yes, it's some people's style of trading just isn't gonna fit. That's just not gonna match prop firms, and that is fine. And I think the end goal, like for everybody, the goal should be to get to what you're doing is have a live account and grow a live account that because you have full control over it. You don't have to follow anybody else's rules. You follow your own rules, and that's it. That's the goal.
yeah,
Um,
yes, it's absolutely. Everybody's trading journey is different, right? And I believe that, like you taught before, right? Like everybody's trading style is going to be different, right? And I've learned along the way from you, right? Is that everybody's trading style is going to be a little different. You're going to have to put your little twist to it, right? And then when you put your little twist to it, as long as it works for you, just keep it going, right? Like before, I used to try to like copy people, and it works, right? But take what you learn. I took a lot from what I learned from you, and I started integrating it and say, hey, this works. This doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, but a lot of things work. Like I would say 75% of the stuff you done taught us through the journey, it works, right? So like, hey, I wait for those inverses, right? I wait for the break of structures, then I take those to the face, right?
mm,
And then I haven't traded in cube I think like twice last week, is because the way it moves is not fluid, right? So I stepped away from NQ because it was just crazy, right? It was just a wild moving, it was like there was no rhyme or reason, like,
mm-hmm.
'cause you didn't trade that much on Creek, right? I was just like, what the heck is it doing? It's
Yeah.
just it's just wild.
Uh-huh. Yeah, true. There's just all over the place, unpredictable. Yeah, that's when you stay out of it. Exactly, man. Exactly. Um, dude, well, yeah, I mean, what would you do you have well, does anybody else have any questions for Tony? My last question for you would be um I have kind of a two-part question. Would be one piece of advice, the main piece of advice you'd want to give any aspiring profitable trader that's listening today, and how you plan to kind of continue your journey forward and continue this success in the future.
Well, I would say definitely, like, keep listening, right? Don't give up. If you have a bad day, definitely reach out to Joe, right? Like, you know, there was many times when you feel like giving up, just take a big breather. I don't know how if anybody's in here is Christian or not, right? But ask God. Ask God to guide you, right? And then he'll definitely lead you in the right path, right? I've always asked God to help forgive me for all my sins, right? And he's definitely guided me, right? You got to know when to fold them and when to push the chips, right?
Mm,
I'm a natural gambler by heart, right? So, and the thing with me is I was always been blessed with numbers, right? I can look at numbers and I can remember patterns, right? So you just got to learn to, journal, right? Remember what you're doing and then see that, hey, what trading is, the same patterns happen all the time. They might not happen every day, but you just got to remember, say, hey, I see the same thing again. Let's repeat it again, right? The market loves to repeat itself. You just got to follow what it wants to do.
100%, man, and amen to that. Got to stop trying to trust our own path when there's a greater path that's laid out for us by God. That if we lean into that path, um, good things can happen. I always find, like you said, when we try to trust ourselves a little too much and lean on our own and try to go down our own path, the path ends somewhere. It doesn't keep going, or it gets a fork on the road. You take the wrong turn. Now you're walking through the forest when that's when you got to reconnect with God and be like, okay, what is my real path here? What am I doing wrong? Get back on the right path, like you said, and on your way to some success and blessings. And then like what you're doing, and use those blessings to bless other people. That's literally that's the goal right there. That's the most amazing thing, man. It's so cool to hear that you're able to, make yourself content, right? And give yourself the gifts, that you deserve, right? Because you earned it. I love that point. Like, everybody says you got lucky, or that you were an overnight success. No, like, you didn't see the years of pain, of struggle, of sweat, of bleeding that it took, of mental torment that it took to get to that point. You only see the success. And everybody needs to remember that it's not going to happen overnight. Like Tony said, it takes time, and it's going to be a struggle, but stay on that path that God has laid out for you, and great things are ahead. And then use those blessings to bless other people, and that's kind of, in my opinion, that's like the recipe for a successful life right there. I don't know if you feel the same way, Tony.
Oh, absolutely. 100%, right? Like you got to trust the journey, right? And then trust that everything that, God's provide for you, right? And not every day is going to be a good day, right? I don't get mad at when my trades don't do well. I always end the day and say, hey, thanks for the lesson today. I'll do better tomorrow.
Mm,
That's all you can do. That's 100% all you can do, right? You
exactly.
know, I I'm not mad today. Like even when we was on this, on this interview, right? Like, hey, we missed a trade. Hey, I guess I'll make it back on Monday,
Mm,
right? I'm just gonna, you gotta take it to the face and then know that tomorrow's gonna be a better day.
100%. I love that, man. That's the mindset right there. If you guys remember something, with your psychology, is think about what he just said. Monday is another day. We'll make money on Monday. We'll take our trade on Monday. Okay, we might have been distracted. We were doing an interview. Oh well, we missed a trade. Who cares? Like, yeah, you might be frustrated. You might be like, well, we should have taken that trade, right? But first of all, the one thing I'll say is, if you are upset that, we didn't take that trade, remember, every trade should be your own trade. Something that Tony also brought up is, he took some things from my strategy and some ideas, but he made it his own, and he has a unique strategy that fits his trading, right? And he takes his own trades. And that's what everybody should be getting towards, is taking, if you want to take pieces of my strategy but make it into your own strategy, take what you already know, what you study in the market, and have the conviction to take your own trades. That is what you should be trying to do. That is what you should be aspiring to do. So even if I am busy, right here, kind of, and we're talking, and maybe I don't take this trade, you see that trade. You heard me talk about it, the reversal before. Now okay, I'm going to execute my short position because I see it stepping in. Even if Joe's not taking that trade because he's busy, I'm going to look to take that trade, right? That's the goal right there. Um, but man, I really do appreciate you hopping on, Tony. This has been awesome. It's been great hearing from you. I'm so happy for your success, bro. Like, it's truly, when you sent that message the other day, I was like ecstatic. I was smiling ear to ear. So it just makes me so extremely happy to see you succeeding, reaching your goals. Is there any last message that you'd want to share with the group before we end the interview?
No, I mean, the last thing I would definitely say is, just continue grinding, right? I know that this is a tough journey for a lot of you guys here and a lot of, trials and tribulations, right? But if you're here, especially in your group, just don't give up, right? You just keep going, you know, always remember that God's first, family, and then, pride, right? And country, right? So do what you need to do, but always remember, right? Just continue your faith, continue to push, it'll work out, right? And if it doesn't, continue to push, right? Don't always think that it's gonna fail you, because it won't, right? It'll always turn out better. And then, it's Friday, right? You go enjoy the rest of your day, right? It is what it is. It's been a tough week for sure, right? But it is what it is. There's always Monday, right? So, a lot of you guys, don't get the FOMO. Walk away. When I'm done with this, I likely just turn it off. I'll take my loss today. I took a loss yesterday, but overall, I still had a good week, right? So, and go enjoy yourself and have a good weekend. I definitely am. Me and my wife's gonna go out tonight. We're gonna have a good time.
Let's go, man. Exactly. Move on. Move on. Move on to the next day. There's nothing that we can do to change the outcome or what already happened. We can't change the past, right? All we can do is focus on
Yeah,
how we can make the future better. And that, exactly like you said, walk away. If you keep giving into that FOMO, you're just going to be down even worse than you were before, and then that's when you really ruin your weekend. So, great advice.
exactly.
Accept the loss. Oh well, took a loss. Let's get back to it on Monday. That's the mindset you
Yeah,
got to have. I love it, man.
exactly.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much again for hopping on. God bless you. I hope you have a great weekend. Um, and yeah, I'll see. I'll probably hop off here, guys. Probably, I'll take a little break from the charts, and maybe if there's still an opportunity for this one to continue lower, maybe there's still a trade. But for now, we'll see. We'll see here. There might still be a short opportunity if we pull back here. If we get a little bit more of a pullback, we might actually have a decent short opportunity. Because we still haven't gone back down to the 50% of our AM range, which is where I'd want to see us go. So we'll see. But yeah, thank you again, Tony. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course, man. Of course. It's great having you. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Man, that was awesome stuff. Great to have Tony on here to share his insight, man. So awesome just to see his journey, his success being an EE from day one, an OG to where he is now. That's what it's all about, man. That's exactly why I do what I do. That's my entire goal is to is for stories like that. That's what makes me feel like what I'm doing is worth it. Pretty awesome. Explain to me how the SC ruling against Trump pumps the market, right? Yeah, it's what I think is like markets more indecisive. We still had we had an external high that had not been taken yet, and we were ranging so much that I think we needed to take that high. I think price just needed to take it before reversing. But yeah, the pump, it's just like, okay, like it could be a positive or negative thing depending on the investor, depending on the company, right? Who's involved in the tariffs, who's benefiting from the tariffs, who's not benefiting from the tariffs, how's it going to affect them? But yeah, we could get lower inflation for sure. We'll see what kind of effect it has. But right now, what I'm looking for, so again, like the initial move was up here, right? We got this inversion of this 2 minute. It's not easy to trade this unless you kind of had to have chased the breakout a little bit, maybe taken like this 1 minute order block. Not a great entry area. Once we inverse, it kind of just dumped away. Right now, what I'm looking for would be a decent pullback. We're maybe into a 5 minute. We did actually trade into that 5 minute here, so could be a good level. I still think this one wants to continue lower, down to the 50% of our AM range, which would be down here at 903. So I think there's still room for this one to run lower. So I still am going to kind of keep my eye on it here for a second. I do need to take a quick bathroom break real quick, guys. I will be back in like literally 1 minute. So please give me a second. I'll be right back. All right, guys, I am back. Still getting a little bit of a retracement here, looks like. So we can even look at this little range here, this little 1 minute range that we just created. High to low, we're looking for a premium retracement. We're now in the premium of this range. So now this could be clear to head back down now that we are in a 5 minute SIBI. And we are in the premium of the range, little 15-minute IFEG right there. So this is when I would start to like an entry more. Would be around this area. Maybe price still wants to retrace back to where we originally broke structure. But from here, this is where I think we'd start to get clear for a short step back in. So I'll watch this one. Let's see if we get something here.